what e-GMAT did for me is, you know what, these are the best problems you need to solve. If, let's say, you want to focus on medium questions in, let's say, algebra, this is the problems that you need to look at. You can also create a very custom quiz for yourself. So if theory is your problem, you can solve the questions. If timing is your problem, you can create a custom quiz for yourself, create a medium cementing. I think that was really insightful to me, that okay, I can really pick out one subtopic and focus on that and solve with time pressure. I think no other platform gives that, so that thing was very interesting to me. Quant, yeah, well, I went from 80 to 80. That should be first data point that it is good. That's first thing, like actual data. Now, where does it get better? What eGMAT offered was two, three things to me. One was a lot of problems. There are like a lot of them. And if you are at somewhere in the middle, somewhere like I was, you can focus on cementing quizzes, which really tell you a mirror that where you are. And it was quite, if you can look at my quant scores, you can see consistent 88s out there. And if you see the previous first attempt, I was at 85, I think. So there is a clear improvement. And the third thing which I felt was this combination of Scholarinium and the Neuron OG, which I think we recently came. I felt Neuron OG to be very interesting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another debrief session with me. My name is Dhruv, and I'm one of the strategy experts at e-GMAT. And today I have with me Aditya, who recently scored a 695. The subsectional scores look as a Q88, which is an 8-point improvement from his previous Q80, a DI84, which is a 98th percentile score, a 4-point improvement from his previous DI80, and his verbal is a V81. What pleases me is that Aditya is here to share his journey with all of us here, to help us understand every bit of his journey, things that helped him, things that didn't go his way, so that you, the GMAT aspirants, can take out a leaf from his book and his journey and try and make wonders in your own GMAT journey as well. So thank you so much, Aditya. Thank you so much for doing this. How are you and how does it feel?
It feels relieved that this would be my probably third or fourth attempt, and latest as showed the improvement. It's quite a lot. It's been long journey, probably 1.5 years I've been doing this, uh, and it's just a lot of relief. And I think what really helped, not because I'm speaking to you, is just the focus which EGMAT got me initially of okay, these are the sections and all of that. As a test taker, I think the biggest worry that I had studying independently was okay, there are so many topics. Where do I even focus on? Of course, GMAT Club and all of it is there, but it's just too much, right? Someone has to be there. Like you were there helping me throughout. These are the three things. And I think initially when we started working together was that focus on, okay, do these X, Y, Z, just gave me a lot of structure. And I think through that is where I am right now. What I'm feeling is a lot of relief that I can now finally apply with the score, which I feel is good. So that's what I,
Right,
that's what I'm feeling right now.
right. So 50-point improvement, which is really good. But I have a question out of curiosity. Never got a chance to ask this to you. You were at a 645, which honestly is not a bad place to be in. I know you had a higher target score for the B schools you were targeting. Having said that, you were at a 645. I want to understand from you what made you feel that if you had to reach a 695 kind of a score, these 50 points would come from a prep course named e-GMAT. What brought you to e-GMAT? What made you believe that this is going to be the right place to look for my improvement?
Yeah, I have this smile on my face because you've genuinely never asked me, and I know the answer to this. Is I was looking at ma'am's video about table analysis and how to spot the correlation trends. And one time there was this, she just told me, okay, you need to spot, just look at the first half, follow on if the second half and first half is talking to each other and what the correlation is. And most of the times you'll get that answer. And I had solved so many data table analysis questions before that, and nobody had told me, okay, this is how you spot correlation. Me coming from a maths background, I literally look at all the standard deviations and all of that, and that's how I used to calculate. But in GMAT, time is everything, and these tips is what really makes a difference on how what you score. And that made me look for probably people like you whom to reach out to. Can you just help me get this course because it seems like this is great. So I think it was that YouTube video which pushed me towards, okay, there are some things which I'm good at. If you give me, let's say, 6 hours, I will do very good at GMAT,
Mm.
but I need to solve it in 3 hours and I need some help there. Of course, there are so many free courses which I can go, but I don't have that much time. My job itself takes a lot of time, and I want to have a very sharp focus on what has to be done, and hence I need a prep course, and that YouTube video was the cue.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. Right. So let's delve into your journey then, Aditya. Okay, let's start with Quant, which is the hero of your score, right? You went from a Q80 to a Q88, scored 8 point improvement. What were those initial challenges that you spotted when you scored a Q80?
Right. So, just a brief background. So, I come from an engineering background. I work in a finance sort of a role. So I should not technically have quant problems. That should not be my weak area. But it's not if it's your strong area or weak area. That's where I think people like me at least come from a lot of overconfidence that we can definitely solve quant. But it's not about that overconfidence. The difference which is okay in that test environment, can you spot those right trends and can you get the answer? I think I made a lot of silly errors, which we call silly, but those are actually sometimes process errors which we don't know of. Is where now that I realize there was a lot of like you have test readiness, you have medium cementing, you have hard cementing, all of these things are there. And during that, when you have these logs that are prepared, is when you start spotting trends that at least let's take my case. I have this probably an Achilles heel that I make small process errors. Like I read something, but I comprehend something else. So there's the course where ma'am says, okay, you need to write what your exact goal is. These seem to be very small changes, but these make a lot of difference. So this time, what I did was effectively focused on those small structural steps. For me, probably knowledge was not a major improvement. It is just about sticking to the process and what is that process to think about in the first place. So I think these two are the things which made a lot of difference. And I think people like me, I know peers who are exactly like me and also still struggling with getting that quant accuracy. It's not quant knowledge, it's quant accuracy. And I think that's where a major difference was knowing what the process is and then sticking to it. So I think that two things were a difference.
Right, right. And I mean, you rightly mentioned and humbly mentioned it. But yes, I come across, I think, 9 out of 10 engineers that I meet, they probably feel that quant, oh, it's a cakewalk. They do get humbled by the GMAT, right? But these guys like yourself, you guys spread the message across to the other GMAT engineering aspirants who must be watching this that okay, I need to maybe just humble down a little bit because yes, quant is different, and you rightly mentioned it's not silly errors. I always tell my students it's not silly errors. Something that can shatter your dream cannot be silly,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah,
has to be something major,
yeah.
right? So it's behavioral issues or process skill issues, whatever it is. It's not silly for sure. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, let's speak about processes now, Aditya. On the e-GMAT course, we have specific files called the process skill files, right? What role do you think that those kind of specific files play in your improvement here?
I'll be honest, when I started that, as I said, I was just being humbled by my mock test, but I still wasn't being humble, so I skipped them, but only to later realize that one I kept making very similar errors and just could understand how can I make those errors is when I actually said, okay, I really need to go through the full course. Someone has put in an effort to put that together in one place in a very sequential format. There has to be a reason for that. And I started following those one by one, and only to later realize that after, let's say, 3 days when I went through the full course one by one, I spent a lot of time going through those videos. I realized my accuracy had significantly improved despite my knowledge being it is what it is. But it's just going through those process files, understanding that okay, first identify the type of problem. If this is the type of problem, this is how you visually look at the problem, and then once you have that in place, you then start the process. You don't start the process without that. This seems like a obvious thing to tell to someone, but for a GMAT test taker who is running some time pressure and probably some target score, it's probably they miss it. And I think that's what I was missing. I think hence these files, although may seem very obvious, but I think are the most important criteria for especially candidates like me who know the knowledge but don't know how to approach it consistently. And I think that process file made the largest difference in quant and also in DI later because they are interlinked.
Right. And I'm sure when somebody like you is good at quant, you would have benefited a lot out of the pace algorithm that we have
Yes,
on the
yes,
quant.
that's I think the biggest part. You don't, I think the platform never forced me to go through the full process and not let me access the files down in the course. So I could really adjust that, okay, I today want to do, let's say, number properties. Today I want to do, let's say, DS in DI. I could really cater to what my needs at the time were. And I think and with that, as I said, YouTube video is the one which sold to me, and DI was my focus. So I focused on DI only to later realize my quant was also an issue, so I need to solve that. And hence, it was like a quant plus DI improvement,
Yeah,
which actually showed on my actual GMAT score later.
makes sense, makes sense. And how about the quality of the questions on Scholaranium? Because those questions do test you,
Hmm.
right? What role do you feel that the question bank played in preparing you for the test scenario that helped you with this 8 point improvement?
A lot actually. So what I think that's the problem. As I said before, never took e-GMAT. Now I've taken e-GMAT. In GMAT Club is the next best thing you go to. It's all the problems are available in the world, but what to look for? Is this the right problem for me? Is some benchmarking I had to do? I had to spend some time. What e-GMAT did for me is, you know what? These are the best problems you need to solve. If let's say you want to focus on medium questions in, let's say algebra, this is the problems that you need to look at. You can also create a very custom quiz for yourself where if timing is an issue for you, because a lot of people, at least I felt that if you give me time, I can solve all the problems. But if you give me time pressure, I probably will make mistakes in 9 out of 30 of them, which is not a great idea in quant at least. So if theory is your problem, you can solve the questions. If timing is your problem, you can create a custom quiz for yourself, create a medium cementing. I think that was really insightful to me that, okay, I can really pick out one subtopic and focus on that and solve with time pressure. I think no other platform gives that. So I think that was very interesting to me.
Right, right. All right. Okay, let's I think now discuss about your data insights, which was another 4 point improvement from a DI80 to an 84 98th percentile. What were the initial issues with data insights?
Initially, I think I was just uh, hitting it everywhere else, but there was no focus in my prep in DI. I was not focused on quant because I knew what to do there. DI, I was just so in DI there are two, three issues which I think all people have been told. In DI, there are very limited problems. They are there in the OG, and those 100 problems are like the Bible, and you should not touch them. And if you do touch them, you should be like very so I was always scared of using those because what if I exhaust all of them? What eGMAT gave me was, okay, there are more problems that we have created for you. And if you want more, there are always coming. And like I don't think I still use all of them. So that gave me a lot of mental comfort one that okay, I can really play around with DI questions. Because the second problem it is there is no good UI out there where I can actually see how the GMAT DI problems look and how to look in different platforms. And I think eGMAT has curated that. So problem set plus a very good test environment which eGMAT has, I think really helped me. So that is part one. It gave me a lot of structure to my DI process. Then the second thing was I went through the full course because I knew I was very unstructured in DI. I need to know how each problem has to be solved. As I said, that YouTube video is the one which prompted me to this platform, so I had to use DI, like fully go through it. So I understood, okay, there are five types of problems in DI. No problem will be new outside of these five problems. So I needed to go through all of them. And what is good with eGMAT is you guys have created very specific problem related introductions. Like, for example, you start in a DI with verbal comprehension. You say, if you have not done this, go to verbal first, then come here. So I did that. Then I think that shows a lot of user insights that you have that, okay, when a user or candidate is trying to take this, these are the specific skill set which are very important. And I think that no candidate has this view that, okay, if I have to attempt DI, DI is a combination of verbal and quant. I need to be good at them too before only before I get here. Now I didn't know that. So while I was going through DI, I actually started looking at everything else. Okay, these are the things I need to learn at. When I started going through it, I realized, okay, my highest error rate is actually in non-maths related DI. Now, this is the one thing which I realized that I need to focus on. Quant, I'm able to solve because probably that's more natural to me. But verbal, I'm not able to, which prompted me to go to actually verbal section and see, okay, what all are the verbal sections I'm missing on. Then I came back here. Even in DI in e-GMAT, there's a split between basic and advanced. Again, if I go to any other platform, I can't find that, which helped me pace it for myself that okay, you can think about, okay, solve basic first. Is the error rate without time pressure good? Once that is done, then you go to time pressure. Then okay, you're confident, go to a medium cementing quiz. Which is when I used to ask you what should I do today, and you used to say okay, solve two medium quizzes. If you hit 70% there, then you can think about going to advanced. If you hit 50% there, then you go to mock test. I think that structured way of thinking, again, although might seem obvious to a lot of people, but when you're actually studying, it's not obvious. That's what I felt. And I think that helped me a lot. That, okay, someone's helping me. You are always one message away, trying to help me through. Okay, if there's a subject matter expert, I can reach out to them. Probably in 24 or 48 hours, they'll get back to me. And I think that relief itself solves half of the problems. And then the content helps with the rest 50, that, okay, you can have a structured view towards whatever your core issues are. And I think what happens is if you are at, let's say, top 10 percentile, what happens is you have some form of confidence in yourself that you can solve it on your own. But the count, which is something which is counterintuitive, is the hardest bits are those 1 percentiles later in the journey, which is where you need help. You don't need help from 60 to 90. You need 90 to 98 is the hardest. And I think that's where e-GMAT helped me a lot. That okay, that 1 percentile, I know how hard it is now to get there. But yeah, that's where I think
Yeah,
in DI, that structured focus and volume of problems, that helped me a lot.
you're right. I'm smiling because I think you can already become a GMAT mentor because these are the things I tell students most of the times, right? That this is how things should be. And even before I could ask those things to you, you already identified, the problem is that not many good questions out there on the web, right? You covered most of the things, by the way. So thank you for that. I have one question for you though. Okay. Uh, Time management is another problem that students face.
Yeah,
Okay. I tell students the first step is to acknowledge that in data insights, you cannot complete all 20 questions within that stipulated amount of time. It is simply impossible if you try to give enough sufficient time to all questions. You will run out of time. Once you acknowledge that, then it's time to identify which topics are time consuming and then play with the time management bit there. That is what holds the key to success. What are your thoughts on this? And how did you plan your time management for the data insight section?
that's a very good question. I think it was last week when I would asked you how should I approach DI. I'm very stressed, and your response to me was very casual. "Yeah, you will always make 2 3 errors, and that's fine." And I'm like, okay, why would someone say that? Aren't we aiming at like 100%? Then I actually pulled out all the stats, and when I realized DI is the most forgiving section of all. If you see the scores from 100 percentile range, it is range from 87 to 90. At 82, you will be probably somewhere around 95 to 96 percentile. So it's a very forgiving section overall. So then it was very clear to me that, okay, I can make, in some, if I have to term it that way, reckless errors, because the aim is the penalty of not attempting the question is much higher than attempting it incorrectly. And I think for someone who is heavily bent on quant, wants to get 90 out of 90 in quant, it is counterintuitive to us. Is so that when I realized that, then I did some reverse analysis. Okay, if I were to, let's say, skip 5 questions, let be me kind to myself. I'm not going to attempt 5 questions. I'm only going to attempt the first 17 questions, 18 questions. I'll do that, and the rest I will just uh, figure that out. Is when I realized, okay, these are the few areas. I think it for me it was a combination of MSR and TPA, where
TPA.
I was not that great, especially the verbal TPA where the constraints go out of hand, and that happened today as well. There was a very complex TPA question. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to attempt it. I'm just going to randomly mark it and move on. That's what I did. I was, although given me the who I am, I cannot randomly mark. I have to have some estimation, so it was not very random. So I made some broad assumptions of where it might lie, and I marked two of them. Thankfully, I think that it will be correct now that I solved and came back home after the test. I think I solved it correctly. But that's that mental comfort, right? That I can make five errors is a lot helpful because initial DI questions, what I've realized, come very hard. I think same with quant as well, and same something with verbal. Initial questions are going to be hard because that's what the test you on. But DI specifically is kinder to you. Even if you make those errors, you will get a good percentile at the end. And I think that was a important realization to me that penalty on losing a question is very high than marking it incorrectly. And that was my focus today, that I have to get to the last question, and then if I have made those errors, I still have three chances to fix them. And one more thing which probably was dumb of me to not know is that I can open the question and not edit, and it's still fine. Editing is it what costs you issues. So today, because I went through the full set of questions and I still had 5 minutes left, checked each and every question if there was any error. I think I changed one of them, but that mental comfort is a lot important. I think which you pointed out, that you can make errors in DI and still be fine, and that turned out to be well. I got 84, so seems like that's fine.
Yeah, makes sense. Right, let's speak about verbal then.
Yeah,
You already had a V85 in the 645 attempt,
yeah,
which means that you were really strong at verbal.
yeah.
Was focusing more on quant and data insights the reason why verbal slipped through the cracks, or was it some test day factors today that led to that little drop in the verbal section? What do you think could have been done better?
I think what could have been done better, you're right. What happened was my sharp focus was on, because I had scored 85 earlier, I thought again that overconfidence is what affects you a lot. I think
Yes,
I was a little overconfident that I could do well in verbal. And I think even specifically, RCs came very tough today for me. They were like really long humanities RCs, which is not if, and when 85, again, this is the luck factor of GMAT. And when 85 was the score, two of the three passages were on businesses, which is my day job.
is your
So I
forte.
didn't
Yeah,
have to think about what would be written there because I know what would be written there. I didn't have to read. It made logical sense. But today was very different. So that is one part. And the second part was, I think CR were a little harder. So in general, I felt the difficulty of the verbal section today was much more than the other two sections. For a moment, I actually thought my quant is going to be really bad because it was very easy in the end. I didn't understand why. But verbal was hard until the end. So I was sure that I was scoring better on verbal. But that's not the truth now that I see it. Even for DI, I felt it's going bad because the questions became very easy in the end. But I don't know, this is the randomness of GMAT or probably the fortune of GMAT, one of the two. But okay, if I were to focus on what I would have done differently is uh, the way verbal is structured, I just skimmed through it because I thought if I had to do 80-20, I'll do 80. The 20 would be verbal and 80 would be content DI. But the verbal section in e-GMAT is very well structured. Like the detail it went to, at least my pain point was main idea. And I don't think I've made errors in main idea today. It would be other questions which I've made errors on. The main idea part, I just could never understand how to even attempt that. Inference and all of that, I was great at. I didn't know how to do that. So e-GMAT helped me to think, okay, I didn't know what is the difference between main idea and primary purpose. Like I thought they were the same because I'm not a literary person, so I don't know that. But there was a very fundamental differences on how these two questions are catered to. Of course, you'll find 100 YouTube videos who will tell that to you, but nobody's telling you the summary of what is to be done. And I think EGMI told me, okay, this is how you identify main purpose, and primary purpose is even more abstract than the main point. So this is how you think. Now, nobody told me that, but so I was very confident that I'll attempt those questions correctly, and I think I did. The other questions I didn't do well. So if I would have gone through the full section in EGMAT, I would be still at V85, but yeah,
yeah.
that's I think what went wrong today.
Okay, that's fine. The overall picture looks bright,
Yeah,
which is what I think matters. Um, So I think you found verbal difficult,
Yeah.
probably because it was a second section, was it?
Yes.
Because you did extremely well in quant, verbal was slightly difficult because of the algorithm, and because verbal did not really go as per plan, you found data insights a little easier comparatively.
This is a theory I never thought was correct, but today's experience tells me that it is intersectional also. It
Yes,
varies a lot. I didn't know that.
many, because there is no official thing about it yet.
Yeah, e-GMAT doesn't say that they all, sorry, the GMAT online website also never says that they say it's section
Exactly.
independent, but
Correct.
clearly isn't because I did well in quant. My verbal was on a different scale. And because
Hmm.
verbal was okay, I think DI was on a different scale, but overall the picture
Correct.
came out to be fine.
Correct. Yeah. So again, as I'm saying, it's not official anywhere. Even the GMAT website doesn't say that, but this is my observation. Okay, so anybody watching this, please don't kill me. Don't agree with me, but I have analyzed a lot of score reports, so this is what my hypothesis tells me. Anyway,
That's
let's.
true. That's
Huh?
true with my last attempt as well. When in
Is it
655, I attempted verbal the last. So my uh yeah, now that I think of it, you are actually right. It's heavy correlation. When I have attempted V85 was when I had DI80, Quant 80, break and then
both low?
verbal.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then verbal was 85 then. Because it makes more and more sense now that I'm thinking of it. You are right. I think it is sectional interdependence as
Yeah,
well.
there is some aspect there for sure, but anyway, not official, so cannot really comment. All right, let's speak about the mock journey.
Hmm.
Okay, you were scoring. I just saw. I could see a 675. I could see a 685, right? And the last mock was. Let me just check.
So it's 675, 735, 685, 675, 675. Those are the
675,
points.
right? Right. So I think the 735 wala was in May before
Yes,
that attempt,
yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes.
For this attempt, it was majorly a 685 and two 675s. You were hovering around that 695 mark,
Yeah,
right?
but never reach that.
Never
Never
reached
reach.
that. Never
Yes,
reached that. So 10, 20 points here and there is always
yes,
happens. Thursday factors play a role.
yes, yes.
How close do you think were the e-GMAT mocks to make you feel that you're prepared enough to go and ace it on the day?
Actually, very close, and I'll say to certain degree a little harder, which is good for me. I'll tell you why I always scored lesser. Is I think what e-GMAT also tells is it's just not attempting the test, it is also the analysis after that. What I did over the last 2, 3 days was just look at my mocks, analyze them, and what I felt was the questions were very close, but because my understanding was at a different level, I would have found them easier. But they are actually very close to what they were today. Especially, I always felt quant was very basic basic in the sense very straightforward sometimes in e-GMAT, but they were literally the questions that came today in quant at least. Very simple maths calculation, which is where people like me will definitely make a mistake. Like I had to check it twice if I'm making an error. So to get to that mocks, I think they're very close. Now I have given other platforms as well, where all the platforms on the internet, and I think everybody is a bit far off from what the actual GMAT test will be. But I think I found e-GMAT to be the closest because now I've given it twice with your once after that 655 score, 645 score, and now today. I think they were very close to what you should expect from the actual. Of course, your performance that day will vary a little bit, but I'm sure of that. If you do well in the first section, the hard questions of GEGMAT will be the section later. If you don't do well in the section before, the easy or medium hard will be what you'll get in the actual GMAT. So that correlation I have seen very closely, at least in quant and DI, very apparent. Verbal, there's a lot of data that I cannot remember, but quant and DI do remember very specifically. They're very close to either hard or medium hard.
All right. I know we discussed about quant already, but there is something that I just want to discuss about it. Just one point here. So whenever I speak with students, okay, either e-GMAT students or students looking for good resources out there, they always come from a point of view that they have read certain things on the internet that say that verbal e-GMAT is the best for verbal, and there is some other prep company which is really good for quant. e-GMAT is not that great for quant. It makes me wonder, are people really surfing the net well? If you go to a YouTube channel, every second student is a Q88, Q90.
Yeah,
Every second student, right? You are at a Q80, scored a Q88. I want to so there the world works on narratives,
yeah.
right? I want to set this narrative straight now. I want to understand from you, since you've used this, and be very honest about it. Doesn't matter you're on this interview. Do you think that the narrative out there that e-GMAT verbal is great, quant is not? Is that true anymore? I know 5 years back, our quant wasn't that great, but this is quant 2.0 that we have.
Hmm.
So, what are your thoughts?
Okay, there are two parts to it. Is verbal good? Absolutely, there's no doubt about that. It's still very good. It helped me refresh. Of course, you can ignore my today's errors. I still had a very good score before that, and I feel it's very good. So let's set verbal apart. Quant, yeah, well, I went from 80 to 80. That should be first data point that it is good. That's first thing, like actual data. Now, where does it get better? Now, the question to think about is, okay, what do people need and is it there on the platform? These are two questions. What eGMAT offered was two, three things to me. One was a lot of problems. There are like a lot of them. And you can have it through one, either through a proper course that you can take, which introduces topic from start to the end. If you are at somewhere in the middle, somewhere like I was, you can focus on cementing quizzes, which really tell you a mirror that where you are. And it was quite, if you can look at my quant scores, you can see consistent 88s out there. And if you see the previous first attempt, I was at 85, I think. So there was a clear improvement. I think that 735 was an aberration because it was probably an easy set. I don't know what that was. But rest all are very heavily correlated towards what the quant was. So that's the cementing quizzes. And the third thing which I felt was this combination of Scholaranium and the Neuron OG, which I think very recently came. I felt Neuron OG to be very interesting because Neuron OG has a combination of one, your OG data, and then second is something which you've prepared based on that. So for me, I don't want to exhaust my OG questions before anything else, and I want something to be close to that. So once I start attempting my OG questions, I should be comfortable and feel that okay, I'm at the right place. And I think those two things. One is if I have a very like for example, I had a peculiar problem with sets that I just couldn't understand. Although I come from advanced mathematics background, I just don't understand sets, the questions e-GMAT has. But there's a very specific way to approach those questions, which I didn't know. If you give me 3 hours, I'll probably solve that, but I cannot solve it in 2 minutes. Which, okay, saw the videos, they said, you know what, this is the 80% solution, like 80% of the problems can be solved with this solution. This is what it is. Take this, and if it is outside that, then you can apply your own specific methods of applying. That was a very interesting insight to me. Now, for someone who is very good at maths, who understands the basic knowledge, if you give me 3 hours, I can solve it. But the issue is solving it in 2 minutes. And does it have the processes structured in the course? Answer is yes. So I found it very interesting that wherever my problem areas were, I could find a process, a way to solve them. And then when I had to test it on my own, say, timelines, I could do that the way I wanted it, either through cementing quizzes, through mocks, or through verbal OG, the neuron OG, which is very new. And then I could go to the OG and then exhaust those problems. And I think that structure helped me with whatever my weaknesses were. And also, second thing was even when I'm attempting it correctly, which is what I realized, the way has to be correct in the sense that if I'm taking, let's say, 4 minutes to solve a problem, it's not ideal. I should solve it in 2 minutes. So somewhere there's a process issue happening. And what helped me to understand if I'm solving it correctly was those graphs which come on the portal, right? You solved it correctly in 4 minutes, but you're at the right end of the spectrum. So clearly I'm
Yeah.
using a wrong method to use it. So then I used to read the solution. Okay, how are they solving it? And then I started to find a pattern of how problems are to be solved. And I think that helped me with that. I think that was a major jump, is where as I said in the beginning, process is the most important thing in GMAT. And I think e-GMAT told me the process. Okay, this is the question, this is the process, use it. And if you can't solve it, of course, you can go back to your basics of how you understand math and you can apply that. But I never had to use it today. So I just stuck to whatever process e-GMAT told me. So that's where I think the biggest delta came from.
Yeah, and that breaks the narrative as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So with that, Aditya, we have come to the end of this session. I was thoroughly enjoying, you know, listening to you share insights and, because you were always in that proper flow and you know uh, explaining things in the most simplified manner, right? So I'm just hoping that a lot of people would have watched this till the very end and would have gained a lot of insights from your journey. So thank you so much for doing this, Aditya. Once again, heartiest congratulations to you. You deserve this thoroughly, right? And EG Matt and I, we wish you all the best for your next steps.
Only one suggestion to all applicants, listen to your coach, like Dhruv, whoever it is with you. They know they're observing your scores. They know the best. They've been doing it for a lot of people. And if they're saying it comes from a thoughtful process of what is right for you. And I think that worked for me.
Thank you so much for this final advice, Aditya. As I said, it was fantastic interacting with you. Keep us posted about your next steps, and we'll always be cheerleading for you from the far away.
Thanks a lot, Dhruv. Okay.
All right.